The ones that are not obvious are the ones that are in our food, in our personal care products, in our clothing, the fabric we are wearing. It's fairly easy for men. They wear cotton underwear, cotton undershirts, cotton jeans most of the time. But ladies like the pretty things. It is estimated 1 in 4 women with breast cancer. And those chemical fabrics have an effect that disrupts the hormones of a woman. Yeah. That is not in God's plan, that sort of suffering happens. So ladies, please be very careful. Be very careful on the fabrics that are touching the skin. So let us have a look at some of the main causes of cancer. There are many. I have a dent on my cheek, and that dent is because I crashed on my bicycle on the bridge. One cause. That's easy. But often it is not that easy. There can be many causes. And you can have 100 people, all with cancer, and there can be different causes in every case. But many people are defiling themselves, not realizing that what they're taking into their body is killing them. So I'd like to look at what that is. In Proverbs 14 verse 6, the Bible says, knowledge is easy to him that understands. And I'd like to give you an understanding of these things so you automatically have the knowledge. It is estimated that we are exposed to 100,000 new chemicals every year. Whew. What chance have we got? What an incredible body we live in when you consider what it survives. You have no say over the neighbour, but you have total say over what you have in your home. It's time to get the magnifying glass out, because you almost need a magnifying glass to find out what's in your washing detergent, what is in your toothpaste, your shampoo. There are so many little areas where the poisons are coming into the body, and it's not the odd day it happens or the odd day that it doesn't. It's what happens every day. The first cigarette smoke does not cause lung cancer. The first drop of the tap on the stone doesn't cause a dent. I said one day, but 50 drops later, my husband pulled me aside, he said, Barbara, 10,000 drops later. That's a lot of drops before a dent is made. There's a lot of cigarettes before the damage really begins. 1 glass of alcohol does not cause liver cancer, but you keep it up. Now, I've just mentioned a few poisons that many people are aware can cause cancer. When I say cigarettes, I'm not just talking about the nicotine, I'm also talking about just the effect of smoke in the lungs, which should never go there. The body bears long under the abuse. A lady said to me, my father, he's got lung cancer. What's my first question? Is he a smoker? No, he's not a smoker. Has he ever smoked? Well, yeah. How long ago? 10 years ago. For how long? 25 years. 25 cigarettes a day. Oh, but he doesn't smoke anymore. I'm so glad he doesn't smoke anymore. But it still had an effect way back then. It is true that as soon as a person stops smoking, the lungs begin to revive, but sometimes the damage has been very great. but we can strengthen what remains. Alcohol. One of the main causes of liver cancer is alcohol. Our brain is headquarters of the human body, but headquarters has a project manager. It's called liver. And the liver's the one that processes everything that comes into the body. And if a lot of poisons are coming into the body, the poor old project manager is going to be way down. Cancer cannot get a hold on the body if the liver's functioning well. But God, in His wisdom and mercy, has made the liver the only organ of the body that has the ability to regrow. Did you know that? Oh, God is so good. He's so good that He knew what was ahead. He knew what we'd be bombarded with, so He gave us a recoverable project manager. Isn't that good news? So one of the first things to do when there has been poisons coming into the body is start to detox a bit and start to get these poisons out. And you can support the liver to do that. Chemicals. Now the chemicals come in so many different ways. I know one in Australia is called Roundup or glyphosate. It was in 2014, the Sri Lankan president, he banned glyphosate. So many of the rice farmers were getting cancer. Even their children were getting sick. As the graphic designer's getting that information for me for my new book is called Sustain Me. It's a handbook on natural remedies. We hope it'll be available by September. As my graphic designer's looking at all this, he actually looked up the leader in the Sri Lanka and he went, "Oh no." I said, "What's the matter? It's just been legalised again." Do you know the greatest want of the world? It's found in the book Education, page 57. The greatest want of the world is the want of men who will not be bought or sold. I don't know what else would cause it to be legalised again. Is it safe now? No, it is not safe. It is not safe at all. And yet we've been told for the last 30 years Roundup is one of the safer herbicides. But it is not true. It is not true. That's an obvious chemical. The ones that are not obvious are the ones that are in our food, in our personal care products, in our clothing, the fabric we are wearing. It's fairly easy for men. They wear cotton underwear, cotton undershirts, cotton shirts, cotton jeans most of the time. But ladies like the pretty things. It is estimated 1 in 4 women with breast cancer. And those chemical fabrics have an effect that disrupts the hormones of a woman. Yeah. That is not in God's plan, that sort of suffering happens. So ladies, please be very careful. Be very careful on the fabrics that are touching the skin. The skin breathes. The skin breathes. It takes things out. It throws things off. It's an incredible organ. So be very careful what touches your skin. Biggest pores in the whole of the body and the soles of the feet. Be very careful what touches the soles of the feet. No more chemicals. The chemical fabrics are acrylic, nylon, polyester. Acrylic, nylon and polyester are made out of chemicals. And how many ladies wear them? They make such pretty things. I can put it in my suitcase. When I get to my destination, I don't need to iron it, but what a deception. The chemicals that are going into the skin, into the body, little by little by little. And the poor old liver, no, more chemicals, more chemicals. The liver looks at it and says, wrap it up in fat and store it. Wrap it up in fat and store it. And that's why when someone goes through a detox and does a couple of days of juices, their breath might be not nice. Their body odour is not nice. What they're leaving in the toilet's not nice. When they tell me, I say, rejoice, where was it before it was coming out? It's got to come out. God designed a self-cleansing organism. And for that self-cleansing to be able to happen, I cannot wash my dishes without water. I cannot wash my body without water, my clothes. Same with the inside. Water. Water. At least 8 glasses of water a day. Here's a good rule of thumb. 8 glasses per 100 pounds. So that's, if a child's 25 pounds, that's 4 glasses. Take it in little by little. Don't take it in like the tornado, 600 ounces at once. 16 ounces at once. You just put a tornado in there. How does God send the rain? Little by little by little. That's the best way to take the water in. Your body can use it. That's why the word use of water, implying there's a way to use water and there's a way not to use water. Chemicals are huge in the contributing factor with disease, particularly cancer today. Mold. The Bible is very clear on mold. If you look in Leviticus, if there's mold in the house, the mortar has to be pulled out, it has to be cleaned, shut up again. Then the priest comes and look 2 weeks later. If the mold has grown again, the whole house has to be destroyed and taken outside the city to an unclean spot. If you've got mold in your house, I'm not necessarily saying it has to be destroyed, but you've got to find out why it's there. This is the 3-letter, that's the 2-letter word, but the important 3-letter word is why. Should not be any mold in the house. The air should be clean. We should be having pure air in through the noses. There's a Italian oncologist. Unfortunately, he was put in jail on a charge of manslaughter because he injected one of his patients and they died. I wonder if he was about to die. My husband said if only he'd injected him with chemotherapy, he wouldn't have been put in jail. Dr. Tullio Simoncini was having a 90% success rate until all his qualifications were taken away. You see, cancer loves. I want to look at what cancer loves, because if cancer loves this, we're going to do the opposite. Cancer loves an acid environment. And mold creates an acid environment and thrives in an acid environment. So Dr. Tullio Simoncini would put a portacath in and he'd put the most alkalizing substance on the planet. Our stomach lining makes it, our pancreas makes it. It's called sodium bicarbonate. Unfortunately, not for us, but unfortunately for the pharmaceutical company, they can't patent that one. But when sodium bicarbonate hits cancer, it causes a wave of alkalinity that the cancer can't thrive in. It's as simple as that. Cancer also loves glucose. It loves glucose to the point that it consumes 15 times the glucose of any other cell. Cancer also loves an oxygen-free environment. So now we're going to make a list of what cancer hates. Cancer hates alkaline. And in a minute we're going to have a look at some of what you can do, especially the foods, alkaline foods. Cancer hates no glucose. So what we do in a program to help conquer cancer is to get that glucose right down, and cancer hates oxygen. I have many books in my library at home, and many books by doctors, professors, naturopaths, nutritionists, scientists who have success with conquering cancer. And there are many different tangents, but I looked for the 3 common denominators amongst them all, and there they are. These are the 3 common denominators to conquer cancer: create an alkaline environment, get the glucose way down, and ensure an oxygenated body. I love it when it's simple. So looking at some of the causes of cancer, absolutely acid. Mold is an opportunist organism. What that means is it's just going to hang around where there's something to clean up. You look at planet Earth, and if something dies on planet Earth, then the scavenger microbes start to work. Isn't that right? The bacteria, the yeast, the fungus, the viruses, coming down to mold, and after the mold stage, the matter's brought back to dust. It's a cycle of life. So the more damage, the more waste, or you call it the more trash, the more of those opportunist organisms to bring matter back to dust. You know that whole process can happen inside a body. That's why it's important to drink lots of water, because we do live in a self-healing organism. But it's also important, this is where abstain comes in, to stop taking anything in that body that will defile it. What can also contribute greatly to cancer is not only cigarettes. It's estimated 7,000 chemicals now in the cigarettes today. Not only alcohol, and the alcohol today is actually far worse than that homegrown wine that the little Italian man might have a few sips of a night. A lot of the alcohol's chemical. I'm not saying alcohol is ever all right. The Australian Health Department issued a statement, it's probably about 20 years ago now, that there is no safe dose of alcohol. It's a neurotoxin. But these chemical wines and beers that they're making today, they're even worse. And the chemicals that surround us in our laundry cupboards, in what we're washing with, in what we're eating. But mold is something that many people are unaware of its dangers. In fact, I have found in many cases that it's a big factor in cancer. Dr. Tullio Simoncini, in his book, Cancer is a Fungus, that's the name of his book, Cancer is a Fungus, he found in every single one of his cancer patients, he found yeast in the body. He found a type of yeast, often a candida yeast, in the body. Now, candida is in every single body, but this is in large amounts. In our gastrointestinal tract, there are 10 times more microorganisms than anywhere else in the body. And in the proper balance, not a problem. But when there's an imbalance, maybe certain drugs have come in to kill off the good bacteria, then the yeast can start populating in a way that God never meant them to be. So when the person is not getting the purifying rays of the sun, when they're not drinking enough water, when their body's not being revived every night, when they're stressed out, worried, stressed out about everything that happens, when they're taking too many stimulants into the body, not realizing the danger, and their sinuses are so clogged up from too many of the devitalized food, they can't even breathe through their nose, so they're getting less oxygen at the cellular level. And remember, cancer hates oxygen. You want to put more oxygen in your body, start breathing in and out through the nose. Eating devitalized foods, overdoing the wrong things, no time to exercise. Can you see the breaking of those laws can cause cancer? In the book, The Ministry of Healing, page 127, Ellen White says, these are the true remedies. So I never go past the true remedies. So if someone has cancer, the first thing you do is put them in the sunshine. No matter where the cancer is, put it in the sunshine. The sunshine purifies. The sunshine penetrates deep into the body. Skin cancer only has arisen since people started to eat devitalized food and they stopped spending time in the sun. Did everyone hear that? They stopped spending time in the sun. In fact, vitamin D deficiency is a big contributing factor to skin cancer. Absolutely, if you burn that skin, you will damage it. Absolutely, you can overdo the sun on the skin, and that's where moderation comes into it. There's no doubt about that. That's why moderation is one of the laws of health. But skin cancer is not because of the sun. Skin cancer is often because of lack of sun, so lack of vitamin D. Yes, 6 to 7 sunburns in your lifetime can cause skin cancer, absolutely. But there are many factors. With every case, there are many factors that come into play. So what I'd like to look at now is I'd like to look at what can you do to conquer cancer. No matter what the problem, the first step is looking at implementing these laws of health. That's the first step. And then starve. How do you starve the cancer? What we advocate, and we have seen some excellent results with this, is no fruit for 6 weeks. And then someone might say, but Barbara, fruit is good. God made fruit good. He certainly did. There is no doubt about that. But if someone has a serious health condition, they may need to stop that fruit for a period of time. Can you see why? Because cancer consumes 15 times the glucose of any other cell. And as Dr. Holland remarked when he co-authored the book, The Germ That Causes Cancer, Dr. Holland remarked, when you deprive cancer cells of glucose, they self-destruct. Let me show you why. We're going to go inside the cell, and we're going to go inside the cell in just about every lecture, because this is the CBD of the human body. The central business district of the human body is the inside workings of the cell, because we are just a bunch of cells. We have 100 trillion cells that we're made up of. We've got skin cells, tissue cells, bone cells, ligament cells, pancreatic cells, liver cells, brain cells. And so we have 100 trillion, and 75 work like this, because 25 children are the red blood cells, and the red blood cells carry the oxygen to the CBD, carry the nutrients to the CBD, carry the water to the CBD, and carry away waste. So no matter what the cell, other than the red blood cell, which is the carrier, all your cells function the way I'm going to show you on the inside. So the glucose goes in, and tomorrow night we're looking at the heart, and Wednesday night we're going to look at diabetes, and we'll be looking at how insulin affects this. But insulin is the key that unlocks the door to get the glucose into the cell. We'll pursue that more on Wednesday. The glucose goes into the cell. When it gets into the cell, it goes through 20 little chemical reactions. So it's a 20-step pathway. And that 20-step pathway gives us 2 units of energy. And isn't that why we eat? To get energy. So our eyes can see, so our ears can hear, so our body functions. The end result of the 20-step pathway is not only 2 units of energy, but a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate. And pyruvate, as the chemical form of glucose, gets fed into the powerhouse. Now, this section of the cell is called the powerhouse for a reason, because even though it's only an 8-step pathway, it delivers to us a very impressive 36 units of energy. What makes the difference? It's oxygen. This is the oxygen pathway. Whereas this pathway up here, no oxygen. This pathway produces energy by the process of fermentation. And this pathway up here is a very fast pathway. It consumes a lot more glucose, but doesn't give much energy. So it's very fast. This pathway is very fast, whereas this 8-step pathway is a lot slower. Can you see the equation? That is where cancer cells run. They're consuming huge amounts of glucose but only giving a little bit of energy, and they function without oxygen. So how can we get this pathway down and do the whole one? Right down to the 8-step, it's oxygen. When we've got enough oxygen going into our body, so every single one of our 75 trillion cells can get down to the 8-step pathway, how are we going to feel? We're not going to be able to hold you down. You're going to have so much energy. Because it is oxygen that makes the difference. No wonder cancer hates oxygen. It wants to happily function up here, consuming 15 times the glucose and no oxygen. So to starve the fungus, to starve the cancer, to encourage our cell to get down here in the pathway God meant, we slow the glucose right down. So what do the people eat? Lots of vegetables. There's no limit on vegetables. Yes, they can have avocado and tomato and zucchini and cucumber because they're the savoury fruits. There's not a lot of glucose in them. And the pumpkin, I think you call it squash, yeah? There's so many vegetables. You can have different vegetables every meal for a week and still not double up on it. So many vegetables. So many legumes. Do you remember what God said in the Genesis? The Garden of Eden died in Genesis. Genesis 1:29. God said, "Behold, I've given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree, in the which of the tree is a fruit bearing seed." So there's your grains and your legumes and your nuts. Nuts are from the fruit of the tree, and your seeds. But keep the fruit down. Just for now. Just for 6 weeks. It's designed to give a sledgehammer effect to these cancer cells. I said to one man, "How are you finding the diet?" He said, "I love it. I'm alive." One man said the first week he thought his throat was cut. But he said getting into the second week, he started to feel very good. And at the end of the 6 weeks, he said, "Do I have to go on to fruit?" I said, "No. If you're happy with what's happening, absolutely." You see, you're the doctor. How do you feel? How is this working for you? Have you ever been to a doctor that will not listen to you? It's very frustrating. Not just a doctor, a naturopath. Very, very frustrating. Don't be that doctor. Don't be that doctor. It's very important to listen. Let me take you back to a verse I gave you earlier in Exodus 15:26. "If you will diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God in your body." in your body. Listen to it. Listen to it. And do that which is right. Give it what it needs. Starve the body of that excess glucose. So no honeys or maple syrups, no sugars at all. No fruit for the first 6 weeks. Lots of legumes. There's lots of different vegetables. Get the carbohydrates right down, because the carbohydrates are like your high carbohydrate grains. Foods are your grains. And I'll be talking about what they've done to the wheat on Wednesday. Yep, there's a huge deception in the wheat. They've changed the wheat. And it creates a starch structure that gets the blood sugar level up higher even than sugar. So if someone is wanting to conquer cancer, no wheat. Lots of vegetables, nuts and seeds every meal. That's not hard. Legumes. Make sure they're well rinsed. If you're not used to them, start slow and build up to them. Because the 3 essential food groups, the 3 essentials, we'll be looking at this as we go through these health lectures. The 3 essential food groups. Essential means your body doesn't make it, you've got to put it in. Fibre. All plant food has fibre, especially vegetables. Protein. You can't heal without protein. Protein are the building blocks of the body. And the cleanest burning fuel is plant protein. That's your beans, your legumes, your lentils, chickpeas, lima beans, black-eyed beans. Also your nuts and seeds. Fats. Whoa, there's been a huge misconception on this one. What is mashed potato without olive oil, I ask you? And God put olive oil in the widow's cruse every morning when she was feeding the prophet for 3 years in the time of no rain. So what's God just said about olive oil? Yes. Yes. Not a cup a day, but we have got a bit of common sense here, haven't we? A little. A little. So your nuts, seeds, excellent forms of fats. And notice what God said in Genesis 1:29. He said, the seed, to you it shall be for meat, or the main substance of your diet. Nuts and seeds are high in fibre, proteins and fats. Excellent. You see, in the seed part of the plant is like the chicken's egg. That lentil can be in the cupboard in a jar for 20 years and look like a stone. And then you put water and sunshine on it, what comes out of the seed? A shoot. For it to be able to reproduce itself, it contains all the essential amino acids. I declare this to you as a government certified nutritionist who studied in detail the plants. And yet what are we told? It's not a complete protein. That's not true. You can go to Nutrition Almanac and have a look for yourself. Every seed has all the essential amino acids in it. Or life could not come out of the seed. There's common sense there. Starve the cancer. No more chemicals. No exposure to mold. That's the abstain. Stop. If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. Stop the chemicals. Stop the poisons. Remember what God said, if any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy, for the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. Number 2, kill. I do think we've got to get away from the kill mentality, but God in his wisdom and mercy gave us herbs. Psalm 104 verse 14, God gave herbs for the service of man. They're there to serve you. And there are some strong herbs. Garlic's a strong one. Olive leaf extract is another one. Grapefruit seed extract is another one. Oregano essential oil, be careful with that one. They're strong. But because the body gets used to things, every 2 weeks change. Maybe garlic 3 times a day for 2 weeks. Maybe olive leaf extract 3 times a day for 2 weeks. So you alternate it. Just when the body's getting used to that one, you change it and do another one. Number 3, alkalize. All your vegetables are alkaline, especially greens, especially the greens. At Misty Mountain Health Retreat, we gather wild greens, lots of mint as well, blend it with water, strain it, and our guests drink a litre of that a day. It's like drinking green water. Now, I can't see Misty Mountain or the look-alike around here, but you can go to places like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and you can get barley green, green barleys, super greens, chlorophylls. You've heard of these? That's certainly comparable. A teaspoon of that in a little water doesn't taste very nice. Put a squeeze of lemon in it, helps. 3 times a day. At Misty Mountain Health Retreat, and I know at Eden Valley Retreat in Denver, they have hyperbaric chamber. Hyperbaric chamber is a way to flood the body with oxygen. They first developed these for divers with bends because 79% of air is nitrogen. That's a 21% oxygen and a little bit carbon dioxide. That's air. And so when the divers come up too quick, the nitrogen goes into little bubbles in their joints. And that's very painful. You've probably heard the bends. So they put them in a hyperbaric chamber. Henry's law states that under pressure, more gas goes into the liquid. Well, when the hyperbaric chamber, the gas is oxygen and the liquid is blood, body fluids. So that's how the hyperbaric chamber works. But they do cost about $30,000, and not everyone has a spare bit of that. So how can we oxygenate our body when you realise that when oxygen's going into the body in adequate amounts, then the cell can get down to that, to the normal functioning cell. Breathing in and out through your nose. The hardest part is when you get to the top of the hill. I can testify. Saturday afternoon, I walked right up to Emerald Lake in the Rocky Mountains. That's 12,000 feet. I tell you, it's tough when you can only breathe in and out through your nose. But you know what happens is you get more energy. Because in the lungs, on the hemoglobin, there are 4 docking sites for oxygen. But you'll only get the transfer if you've got 4 molecules of carbon dioxide. If the person's only got 2 molecules of carbon dioxide, then they can only pick up 2 of oxygen. This happens in the lungs, and it happens again at the cell wall, the cell membrane. And when you breathe out through your mouth, you lose too much carbon dioxide. But if you breathe in and out through your nose, that balances the blood gases, being oxygen, carbon dioxide, and you get a better transfer. And it's quite interesting because going up to Emerald Lake, I don't know if anyone here's been there, it's high. You're walking like this for hours. You know, I saw 2 and I thought it meant 2 kilometres, but it was 2 miles. Whew. And when I'm 3/4 there, I thought, what have I done? But when I got there, it was certainly worth it. It was very, very beautiful up there. But we breathed in and out through our nose. And the 2 young guys who were with me, I said, can you do it? And they said, it's a struggle, but we're doing it. You can train yourself into it, just in and out through your nose. When you breathe through your mouth, the little canals at the back of your nose, they start closing up. You know the old saying, if you don't use it, you will lose it? When you close that mouth and start breathing in and out through your nose, those little canals at the back of your nose, they start to open. Isn't that good news? So that's how you can get more oxygen into your body, and exercise every day. Every day we must exercise. So we had a lady attend our program named Elizabeth Cott. She had 3 large tumours in her abdomen. She was in her mid-60s at the time. The doctor said, if you don't get chemo straight away, we don't know if you're going to make it. You've got to work fast. Well, the best thing to say is thank you so much for your advice. I'm going to seriously consider it. Because what does God want us to do? Not make a decision on fear. Remember, he says, I haven't given you the spirit of fear. Do you know what that word fear means? Timidity. Cowardice. God hasn't given us that. So no matter what you're told, the best thing to say is, thank you. Thank you so much for your advice. I'm going to seriously consider it, and go down and weigh up your options. And a lady gave her a DVD that I had done on cancer. So she decided to come to Misty Mountain Health Retreat. At Misty Mountain Health Retreat, we stopped all glucose. Well, you can't stop all glucose because every cell must run on glucose, but we greatly reduced it by stopping the fruit. We gave her herbs to kill. We didn't have the hyperbaric chamber at that stage because this was 11 years ago now. She had the green drinks every day. She did a total lifestyle change. This lady was a Seventh-day Adventist. She said, I've never drank, I've never smoked, I don't do anything that could have caused this. But she's a very clean lady, and her laundry was full of chemicals. So many chemicals. You could eat off her floor, it was so clean, but you actually couldn't because there were so many chemicals. You see, it's a huge deception. People don't realise the chemicals can be killing them. And then she said something. She said, oh dear, we've got a Polish church and we love our desserts. And she said, I make a dessert, it's this big. It's a meringue dessert. We call it pavlova in Australia. And she said, I whip up 16 egg whites and 16 cups of white sugar. She said, I think I was just feeding my cancer with sugar. When she saw there was definitely no mold in her house, there's no place for it. There's a lot of chemicals and a lot of sugars. She said, ooh-wee. See, this is the mirror. And when many people look in the mirror, they go, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Because you're the doctor. Only you know your history, only you know what you've been through. And only you know how different things react and what your body responds to. She went back to the doctor 3 months later. He did a blood test, he did a scan, and he said, just keep doing what you're doing and I'll see you in 6 months. Now, what did he say the first time? You gotta have chemo straight away. She went back a year later because this is a year now since she started. One of the tumours had totally gone. She said, I haven't felt this good since I was in my 40s. She said, I actually feel better now than in my 40s. I've lost weight. I'm off my sleep apnea machine. I'm off my medication. Another year later, another tumour had gone. She's a very happy lady. She gives little talks now. She's a little shy, so just little talks to little groups. And when they ask her to make a pavlova or meringue dessert now, she says, oh, I love you too much to do that. I'll make you an apple strudel with spelt flour and Granny Smith apples and a little maple syrup. She's not on the no fruit diet now. She just was for that first 6 weeks. And it's 11 years later now. And how long does that 6 weeks seem now? Like a drop in the pan. Her story is one of many. And what we say to people when they first come and they want to conquer cancer, I say we see 3 outcomes. Sometimes we see a turnaround, and I could spend the next hour telling you many other stories, but time prohibits me. We've also seen 6 months go to 6 years. And we've seen the last days made more comfortable. Do you know, God requires us to look after our bodies. And when we look after our bodies, He will bless that. But as you can probably see from some of the things that we've touched on tonight, many are sick through ignorance. They don't realise that what they're doing to their body is contributing to their illness. And isn't that the greatest deception? Isn't that what deception is? Deception is not what it seems. Not what it seems. And some people I've met, they say, found out they had cancer, so they went on a fruit fast. And the lady didn't realise that all her underwear was made out of chemical fabrics. There are so many little areas that people don't realise. In the book, The Ministry of Healing, Ellen White says the only hope of better things is the education of people in the right principles. She said, let the physicians teach the people that restorative power lies not in drugs, but in nature. Disease is actually an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that arise because of a violation of the basic laws of health. But if people don't know the laws, they don't know that they are breaking them. Dr. Matthew Walker, in his book Why We Sleep, he says 10 nights of 6 hours sleep a night, 50% less cognitive performance in the body. Physical performance and 50% less cognitive performance from 6 hours sleep a night for 10 nights in a row. And yet how many people think six hours is pretty good? You have 6 hours, you feel okay. You have 4 hours, you feel terrible. Well, we have a saying in Australia, you feel like something that the cat dragged in. Not great. So you can see how the great deceiver has come in and deceived many on those basic laws of health. So implementing the laws is the first step. Sometimes there can be specifics depending on the type of cancer. So if a lady has breast cancer, then it's essential that the hormones be balanced, because if the hormones are balanced, then cancer cannot get a hold on the reproductive organs of a woman, but also of a man, as in prostate cancer. So balancing of the hormones is essential. And you might have seen my lecture online where I explain the hormones and how to balance them. Also with breast cancer, poultices can be applied to the breast. One lady told me that she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer 20 years ago. She said, I was in the hospital, I was devastated with the news. A delivery boy came in and I said, can I get a lift out with you? She left the hospital. She went to a friend's house that lived by the sea, and she'd heard of castor oil compresses, and she wore castor oil compresses on the breast. She said, I walked up and down the beach every day. I thanked God for everything that ever happened in my life. Did you hear that? She thanked God, because the Bible says in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. It doesn't mean you have to like it, just be thankful. When you're thankful, it's a step of faith. It's basically saying, Father, I don't like it and I don't want it, but I trust you. I trust you. That's why trusting God is right in the center here. I've got a lovely illustration for it. My little grandson is 3 and he's walking along the edge of the creek. You call it a stream? Yeah? That's what a creek is in Australia. He's a little uncertain. He turns around and holds my hand and he immediately becomes invincible. Leaning right over the creek. Why is he doing that? Because I'm holding his hand. And I believe that's a beautiful illustration of the trust that God wants us to have in him. Hold on to his hand. In Isaiah 42, verse 5, the Bible says, Thus saith God, the Lord, the creator of the heavens that stretched them out, he that brought forth the earth in that which comes out of it, that's us. He that giveth breath to the people upon it, and spirit to them that dwell therein. He says, I, the Lord, hath called thee in righteousness. I will hold thine hand. I will keep thee. Isn't that a beautiful promise? He says, I will hold thine hand. But you know what Lennox had to do? He had to turn around and look up and grab my hand. Then he became invincible. I'm not quite as strong as his father. I was a bit concerned about his instantly becoming so invincible. But he had total trust in me. There was not a doubt in his mind that I wouldn't be able to hold him. Oh, let's have the trust that Lennox had in me, and I'm fallible. But that in his mind, no. That's the faith that God wants us to have in him. Remember what he says? I will hold thine hand and I will keep thee. You will not walk this journey alone, but you will be walking hand in hand with the great God of heaven. And so when I say to people, sometimes it makes the last days more comfortable. Maybe 3 months later, maybe 4 months later, it was incredibly advanced. The partner or the wife or the husband ring me and they say, thank you. They passed in dignity. What we learnt at the retreat made the last days more comfortable. What a blessing. So no matter what stage, the natural remedies can always help. As to the outcome, only God knows. And if God chooses to take one early, praise be to God, the best is yet to come. This is not a happy planet at the moment, but I thank God that when we give our body the right conditions, we can function well, even on planet Earth in 2023. Isn't that right? Now, I have got time. I've got 10 minutes to take some questions. We've got a microphone, so we'll take them one at a time.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sister Barbara O'Neill, for your ministry. Thanks for being here. My question is regarding female cancer, whether it be uterine cancer or cervical cancer. Do you recommend that the woman take the treatment of radiation and then go on the 6-week vegetable fast, or do you recommend first the natural approach and then take the radiation, or omit radiation altogether?
Because I know that drugs never heal disease, I personally would not take the radiation. I would have faith in this body and its inbuilt ability to heal itself. I've seen radiation damage many. Once I saw it help, and that's when the tumour in the uterus was so big it had blocked off the colon. And what the radiation did, it was shrank that tumour so now her colon could work. So, there may be a case in a situation like that, but I've also seen radiation applied to the breast and it's burnt a hole in the lungs. I've seen radiation applied to the uterus and it's burnt a hole in the colon. Personally, myself, I would not have the medical treatments. I would do the natural treatments. So if it's uterine, if it's cervical, and if it's ovarian, that's where the castor oil compresses can be applied. Yes?
Would you also recommend the castor oil compresses for something like prostate cancer? I have a family member who I think he is just in the beginning stages of that. And so I was trying to tell him to hold off, but he's kind of old and he doesn't want to do anything too...
It is very difficult, especially when you realize that, God has given each of us the honour to make our own decisions. And if someone makes a decision that I don't agree with, I respect their right to make that decision. And I certainly understand with if someone is elderly, but I've also seen that these drugs can be devastating when a person is elderly. But with prostate cancer, with uterine cancer, with cervical cancer, there is a water treatment, which is sitz baths, sitting in hot water for 3 minutes, sitting in ice cold water for 30 seconds 3 times. It's an excellent treatment for all problems in the hip area. Castor oil, applying it to the prostate, very difficult because it is in the area between the scrotum and the anus. But what some of our guests have chosen to do, they make suppositories, 50% castor oil, 50% coconut oil, and they melt the coconut oil, mix it together, pour it into the fingers of disposable gloves, put it in the fridge, and now they've got 4 suppositories. And they can take the rubber glove off, 1 finger, and then that's a suppository that can be inserted into the anus. And the colon, where the castor oil melts, it's right next to the prostate, so it just, as it melts, it penetrates through the prostate. That's the easiest way to apply it.
Good evening. I had a question on, you mentioned there's some herbs that we can take to balance the hormones, and you mentioned the poultices. I was told to get a biopsy on my breast, and so I'm trying to hold off and doing some castor oil poultices, as well as the juicing fast. And so just wanted to know if you had any additional poultices to try and any herbs that I should be taking.
I personally would not have a biopsy. Very damaging to the tissues is a biopsy, whereas the castor oil can penetrate very deep. And the castor oil penetrates deeper than any other oil, and wherever castor oil penetrates, it breaks up lumps, bumps, congestions, adhesions. I met a lady 2 weeks ago, and 2 months of applying castor oil to her bunion, there was no more bunion. And this lady was in her 70s. So if it can break up a bunion, it can break up a bone spur, it can break up a tumour. So the key is consistency.
Hi, good evening. My question is cysts, it's a 2-part question. Is cyst a type of cancer, especially ovarian cysts, and what's your recommendations on treatment? Thank you.
A cyst is not a cancer. And some people are told it could develop into a cancer, but I wouldn't believe them. Do you know what my husband says a lot when people tell him things? He says, I don't believe that. So if you get a test and the result's not great, you don't have to believe it. Do you know sometimes they're wrong? A cyst does not necessarily develop into cancer. Maybe if the person's taking a lot of chemicals, maybe if they're breaking every law, it might. But a cyst, many people have cysts. In fact, most of us have probably got a cyst or 2 somewhere. Maybe I've got a few cysts on my liver. I'll never know because I'll never have a test to see if it's there. You see, everything works, so I just let it be. But a castor oil compress can break up a cyst, that is true.
Greetings, Sister Barbara. Do you have a good recommendation for arthritis?
I do, sorry, over there. Yes, an alkaline diet. I have written a book called Self-Heal by Design. It has been out of print, but we've just printed 10,000, which are arriving at my daughter's house today. And you'll get the website. It's www.mistymountain.usa, that's easy to remember, .com. And you can order the book through there. And in that book there is a chapter on the acid-alkaline balance in the body. So when someone has arthritis, going to a more alkaline diet can certainly help to resolve the arthritis. And implementing these laws, breaking of these laws creates an acid. Keeping of these laws helps to bring an alkaline environment into the body.
Praise God for your information, Sister O'Neill. What do you think of food-grade hydrogen peroxide as a cancer treatment?
Food grade hydrogen peroxide is a cancer treatment I have never used. I know that our white blood cells, when they kill pathogens in the body, release hydrogen peroxide. Did you know that? That's interesting, isn't it? I've used hydrogen peroxide on wounds on the outside of the body, but I have not used it internally.